Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about prehistory and the first humans. First things first, what is prehistory? Okay, it's a time before the invention of writing. It's about 5,000 years ago. And again, make sure you're following along on your notes moving forward. I'm going to go rather quickly. But it's the time that before the invention of writing. It's approximately 5,000 years ago. BCE and CE is before the Common Era versus the Common Era. If you look at a number line to understand, anything before zero is BCE, okay? Before the Common Era. So whenever you have, the farther you go back in the BCE, the higher the number. All right, anything after the zero, all right, is called CE or Common Era. And anything above that is going to go higher in terms of time that goes by. So an example would be 100 BCE would be to 44 BCE, which would go from 100 down to 44. It goes closer to zero, because technically BCE is negative. Leonardo da Vinci was 1452 to 1519. He's going to go up rather than down because he's past zero. He's in the Common Era. Archaeologists are scientists who work to uncover the stories of humans, excavations. They analyze what are called artifacts or human-made objects. That's where history is located, is underground. So they have to be good diggers. They have to be good, very good with very sensitive objects that could be very brittle and very old. But Timbuktu's tomb is a prime example of the Egyptian artifacts that were brought back. So you have to look at all of those things, and you got to love dirt, and you got to get your hands dirty. One thing you're going to need to know for the SOL is the difference between primary and secondary source documents. A primary document is literally coming from the source, the first-hand account of events, like a photograph or a journal entry or an interview with that particular person if you're lucky enough. But a secondary is about primary documents. They're written about them. All right. So if you want to do a story about Anne Frank, okay, I would be writing it about the. Oops. Actually, I'll continue. If you want to do something about Anne Frank. You look at the Diary of Anne Frank. That comes from her. That's primary. But if you want to write about the primary document, you would be the secondary source. So an example would be textbook. If I'm going to tell you about the Battle of Gettysburg, I wasn't there. But if I write something about it, that's a secondary type of source. A primary source would be someone that was actually there experiencing the battle. A culture is a way of life of a society. It's a unique way of life. Everybody is different. Everybody's got different skin tones. Everybody's got different religions. Everybody's got different ways of eating. To give you a prime example, I'm Irish, so I'm an Irishman. So our food is a shepherd's pie. Our clothing would be a wool sweater. Our music is from Julian pipes. Our religion is Christianity. So everybody's got a different culture for each individualized country and culture, way of life. Okay, anthropologists are the ones that are scientists that study culture. Here's just an example of what technology is. Technology is that constant moving forward. We saw that technology become a big part of the industrialized times with the spinning jenny and the steamboat and the telegraph and all these different types of different things, especially with computers. Computers, radar, atomic energy, space travel, all of those are going to have a huge impact on the present day world. Okay, so let's talk about the Paleolithic and Neolithic age. The Paleolithic age, anything lithic is the Stone Age. So both of these times are are Stone Ages, but the oldest is the Paleolithic age. All right, and these guys, they were very basic peoples. Okay, the the Paleolithic era are people who were nomads. That's a big word for the SOL. Nomadic people were mobile. They moved in search of food. That was it. They were survivalists. They were hunter-gatherers. The men would hunt the food. The women would gather it, and that's how it worked. Okay. Their lives, they lived in clans, they lived in groups, and they went from place to place in constant search of food. They learned how to make fire, all right, but they developed an oral language for the first time. That's a big deal. So communication started during this period of time. The humans are going to appear, all right. Homo sapiens emerged in East Africa between 100,000 and 400,000 years ago. Some Homo sapiens migrated from Africa to Eurasia to Australia and the Americas. Why were they nomads? All right, that's exactly what I'm explaining to you. They had to constantly move around in search of food, and they were dependent on environmental effects. So take a look at this picture. This picture is very simple. Okay, you got people that are walking. All right, it's a nice day outside, but what happens when this gets snow on it? Okay, these people, look at their clothing. All right, they need to adapt to that cold, and they can't because they don't have the sophistication of a culture in order to do that. So they had to constantly move from place to place in search of that food. But notice certain things here. You got water. Water is what's used to survive, so that's the reason why they're there. But they have to keep moving in search of food. So then you have the Paleolithic age, which is the older part, and you've got the Old Stone Age. All right, hunted and gathered berries, nuts, edible roots, fruit, meat, and fish. They were omnivorous. All right. Anybody know what omnivore means? All right. And you guys like meats. You guys like beef. You like pork. You like chicken. All the major food groups. All right. You like vegetables. If you love all kinds of foods, you're an omnivore. So you eat meats and you eat plants. So these guys ate everything. All right. Look at their clothing. Different types of clothing. Their stuff barely hangs on to them. They're not very sophisticated when it comes to clothing. All right, they have basic animal skins that they use for the hunt. And look at the bones. Look at the tools that they used. All right, again, not very sophisticated. Shelters. They look at shelter. They only have temporary shelter because they were nomads. So they took shelter in caves. Who else lives in caves? But bears. Okay, so they had to be very, very careful about the amount of time they took to spend there. All right, and again, very simple tools. Notice most of it's made out of bone, all right, but out of stone as well. They had to constantly sharpen. They knew they needed sharp objects, but that was about it. And they used cave art. This is where we get our evidence of these Paleolithics. Most of our stuff comes from these caves. Okay, one word you're going to need to know that's important, very important, especially in World History 1 and in 2, is revolution. A revolution is a complete change in a political, economic, or social structure. Neolithic revolution. When you think Neolithic revolution is, it's a change from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic. They slowed down. They developed agriculture. They realized that they needed water to survive, so they stayed where the water was. And they adapted. All right, and they developed their own agriculture. Another word for agriculture is farming. They domesticated their plants, they domesticated their animals. Domesticate means staying home. Okay? If you're called domestic, it means within the home. They control the food source by raising their animals. They control the agriculture by growing the food. They cooked all of their meats. Life is good. But they wound up having to settle in different places that offer water. Look at the difference between Neolithic and Paleolithic. Neolithic, look at their forms of clothing. Sewed and woven cloth. They're a lot more sophisticated of a people than the Paleolithic. They had decorated clothing to show off their culture. Their shelters are much more sophisticated as well. They didn't live in caves. They were made of stone with a roof and a fireplace. Tools, a lot sharper, more advanced, smoother tools, hand axes and spears. All right, and they migrated all throughout the Neolithic. Migrate is different than nomad. A nomad's going to go from place to place in search of food and not stop. A migration is just going from point A to point B, okay, in the Americas. And they went all over the place. They migrated Asia, Eurasia, Australia, and the Americas. They went all over the world, okay, not knowing where they were going or how they were going to get there in most cases. Neolithic revolution allowed people to stay in the same place. The populations grew because of the abundance of food, their health got better, and their farming and agricultural centers developed in societies. Society is present in present-day England. It was called Stonehenge. Unsure of what it was, but it was probably a religious site, and it was built during the Neolithic age. All right, and Catalhayuk is a agricultural society in present-day Turkey. So you need to know the difference between these two. You need to know that this was during the Neolithic time and this was during the Neolithic time. Okay?